Okay, good evening, and I'll call the January 19th, 2022 Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Those that can, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. John, would you like to join us, lead us in it tonight?
Excuse me?
Lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I haven't done it so long as a teacher, so.
Thank you. Additional agenda and consent calendar items. One item I'll bring up if we'd like to add for 2G. Do we want to take a look and try and set dates for budget review meetings next month? Or do you want to wait until our next meeting when you get your budget books?
I just assume wait.
Waiting's okay.
Okay, we'll hold off on that and do that too.
Well, I think we have to also do meetings for the ARP, when we're meeting tomorrow for the first time.
Okay, so then you'll have that scheduled. Oh, no.
We'll be able to schedule.
Okay,
Yeah, it makes-
really good point. Okay. Okay, so there are no other additional agenda and consent calendar items. Delegation, Don, you indicated you'd like to come. If you just come up to the podium and give us your name, address, please.
Frederica Gunther, 123 Pennsylvania Avenue, Niantic, Connecticut. So the reason I came tonight was someone pointed out the editorial that was in, can you hear me? Is this on? I don't even know. I don't think it's on, but it's all right. The editorial in the Day, and it was in reference to making racism a public health crisis. I thought we had kind of gotten past that, but obviously they're still moving forward with that. I think it's important. I'm going to read this, just bear with me. The Black Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, said, "It was my mother and father who, despite the fact I was growing up in Jim Crow, Alabama, always had me convinced that I could be President of the United States. They always taught me to look past the obstacles, either blast through them or assume they're not in the way. Growing up where I did in Alabama probably gave me a healthier respect for how far we've come. I don't carry anger about that period of time. I think it made me and people like me stronger. I just refuse not to be optimistic. You only have one life, and if you spend your entire life seeing obstacles and seeing clouds and assuming everybody's out to get you, then I think you're likely to waste your life, and I'm just not going to do that." And I think that's a really important lesson for all of us, and maybe for this group, the SCORE group, that keeps pushing this. When they say public health crisis, I'm like, really? I looked up public health crisis, and I'm like, really? Racism is a public health crisis? I've mentioned it to a few people because I think Connecticut did make it a public health crisis. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? I just think it's a very divisive thing, and it's also a ridiculous statement. I don't understand what they're looking for and what's the inequities that they've experienced in this town in particular, because they're looking to label East Lyme that way. To me, it's pretty easy. I mean, we know there's probably racism with some people. It's never going to disappear. There are people that are prejudiced against all sorts of people. But I think, I hope we don't entertain what they're asking you to do. I know a lot of you didn't seem like you were. It's just, to me, it's very simple. Very simple. Treat others the way you would like to be treated. I just don't know what they would like to see. Do they not have the same opportunities? I don't understand that. Are there lack of economic inequity? Possibly, but now I know you have the new development down near the police station, and it's pretty affordable based on income, and I think that's really a great thing. They're beautiful. It looks really nice. So anyhow, I'm not sure where this group is funded, who funds them, but it seems that they could maybe spend their time doing something a little more productive. I think that whole thing is very divisive. So that's all I have to say. One more thing I'd like to ask. When do our roads get repaired, like the side roads and stuff? Like
We really can't,
Avenue?
I can comment at the end of the meeting about
Yeah.
that, but
All
I
right.
can't do that now.
Okay, I just thought about that.
Okay.
Mention the fence. All right, thank you.
Seeing there's no one else here, I assume that's the end of delegations. Moving on to approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, I'll move to approve the East Lyme Board of Selectmen's special meeting minutes of January 5th, 2022.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Dan. Any comments or corrections?
Yeah, on section 4A, the field report, it says, Ms. Chacon reported that she attended and says here the Waterford East Lyme Shellfish Commission in Walpole, but actually it should be the East Lyme Harbor Management Shellfish Commission meeting.
Okay, got that, Ann? Okay. Any other corrections?
Yes, just one other on the very last page, page 8, item 6, public comment. I believe the address of that individual is, it's White Birch. So the word earth would be corrected to be birch.
Okay, any other comments or corrections? Both the mover and seconder okay with the corrections? Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the approval of the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? And it carries unanimously. Moving on to our consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar for the regular meeting of January 19th, 2022 in the amount of $1,767.31.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It carries unanimously. And moving on, and just for our discussion, our hazard mitigation plan. This comes up every few years, every 5 years, and it speaks of the 2021 strategies and results, and you can see where we were there with Action 5, pursue elevation properties, and it also talks the status of each of the actions in there, and 6.5 all the way down to moving up. So are there any questions or anything like that? Because normally we'll have the town engineer here, but he could not make it tonight. So are there any comments that you'd like me to look into on this and move forward? Bill, you had one?
Yeah, as I said, the one that caught my eye was actually currently looking for funding source. I was just wondering if either the new federal infrastructure, if we have access to that, or if the ARP team can look to see if it would be adequate or appropriate for that.
I did reach out to Joe Bergoy after you texted me today. He is coming up, and I'll get into this a little later, I've told all department heads by February 2nd I'd like a prioritized list of any needs they feel they have that would be covered under ARP. So, I'm going to ask him if this is something that he would be considering for that, since Alex, the engineering department, does fall under him.
Just a question, Kevin, will we have a presentation at some time in the
Yes.
future? Okay.
Yes.
Question on action number 7, it talks about volunteer programs for volunteer firefighters, and then I guess people with basic organizations that help during storms. Is that something that's currently going on?
It was right now, because one of the things we're trying to work out with, the volunteer firefighters, definitely, we didn't really need them. For instance, the flood a couple days ago, we were all set. Normally, we will have them, and there's as it says here, the completion of the course participants for 4 years place them. So we have. I don't know if one is scheduled, but it has in the past. But that's one of the things we'd be able to find out.
Okay. And then my other question was on action number 20, trying to consider a wind fair to familiarize the public with wind hazards and potential mitigation measures. And what I was wondering is if something like, because we just had this big storm with the winds and everything, is there something that we could put up on the town website, like just to help the public for mitigation measures?
I don't have an answer to that, but I will have an answer for that for you. That's a good question.
Well, isn't that understood? But it's a request, it's a request to consider,
Yes.
so to
So-
familiarize the public.
No, but that's just it. I can see what the,
Versus having it there, after you put something up on the website,
Yeah.
so people can refer to it, because, you know, we seem to be having a lot more storms lately.
And I wouldn't think to be mutually exclusive, I shouldn't think there's any reason why you can't do both.
yeah.
So when Alex does come to present, or town engineer, I did have, I would really like to hear, using this spreadsheet, some detail about the criteria, the weighted criteria, and how we get to priority for community, the low, medium, high. I mean, I'm not familiar with this rubric at all, but it would be good to know
Yes.
how we decide these things, because there are some things that you might think should be, a high priority and they're not, and vice versa. So just a detail, maybe a little detail on the criteria used.
Okay.
That
Which
would
is
be
helpful,
really
so that we can pass it on, so I can pass it on when
Right.
he's able to attend, so.
Great, thanks.
So, I was thinking of taking it off the agenda for tonight, but I figured just to have
Yeah,
a
no,
quick
that's-
review
Yeah, that's
and
good.
look through that, so.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Discussion of possible action on Darrell Pond. Dave Putnam sent me an email early this morning asking to have this removed from the agenda because something came up and he's not able to attend to make the presentation. Basically, this does go back to them wanting to, the Parks and Rec Commission are going to request that they have the Darrell Pond property, the 300 acres, placed under Parks and Rec vice the town. And they have some specificity as to do that and how they do not plan on excluding the Board of Selectmen in the town when any decisions are made to do any type of improvements or alterations up there. So I told Dave gladly wait until he could add that. He could be here and have the support of his board and commissioners as well.
Before you move on,
Mm-hmm.
I did not think that the 300 acres were under consideration. I thought it was 100.
No, it was the whole 300 is what they did, because, the thing is, it's getting to the point where the trails aren't being maintained and so forth, and their thought is going to be, but here again, we owe them the opportunity to present, to maintain, keep the trails, because right now, that's one of the things Dave has heard, that the trails need maintenance and clearings and so forth like that. And if his, people are going to be, if his maintainers going to be asked to do it, they'd like to have it under their control so they can come up with a maintenance schedule for it.
Well, I'm going to go back and look at previous minutes because I'm quite sure that it was not 300 acres that were to be developed. There was
Oh, no, 200, there's 200 acres that cannot be developed because there's a conservation easement, but it's just for the maintenance, the overall maintenance of those 200 acres that would, there'd be no development on that because there's a conservation easement on. Moving on, we've had and I handed out the literature, we have a pension board. It was formed back in, I believe, early 2008 by Paul Formica, because we had a pension fund that was roughly at about $7 million. And when we'd all heard about some of the concerns with the states and other towns that may have had some funding issues with their pension systems, he wanted to make sure that was not the case. They appointed, the first selectman was on it, plus there was 5 other electors of the town, plus 1 member of a union, someone who, was going to be benefiting from this. And between then and now, that $7 million has grown to over $30 million. We've had some really, really good people with backgrounds in investment and finance, making sure everything was taken care of. And when you look at our funding for our pension system here, we're up over above the 90th percentile statewide for having it funded, so we're in very, very good shape there. And now, over the next few years, we do expect a few more people than normal retiring. So this is something that Denise Hall, who's on the pension committee as well, also chairing the Board of Finance, came up with. You know, and she refers to the part of the chapter. It's been given to the attorney. They're going to check the general statutes and render an opinion on this. And as you can see, I already put one of theirs when we were talking about this yesterday, where they put nature and extent. But they want to look into, make sure that the powers and duties are in accordance with state law. Here it talks about appointing everybody for 4 years. They want to make sure that that's the point where it's a staggered, so that, you know, not the whole board is up for reappointment at the same time. And the investment powers and reporting procedure and so forth like that. So this board has done a great job, but there's no place in our charter or anywhere where we have a pension board. That needs to be resolved. So Denise and I figured this would be a great thing to do. If we do this, it'll be on our agenda for the next meeting. As soon as I get the attorney's review, I'll forward it to everybody so that we can discuss it and act on it. But this will be an ordinance, not a charter change. So with an ordinance, there's a waiting period, and it has to go to, we have to post it in the paper and have to have a public hearing on it before we enact it. So this will be coming up. And if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to, you know, reach out to me, and I'll get any questions to the town attorney. Any questions right off the bat on this? I know you've just seen it, so. All right, does anyone have any concerns with us forming, looking at forming this, making this an official committee? So, okay. Moving on, and just for discussion tonight, I had talked with the town attorney yesterday. You know, we had talked during the campaign, both Camille, Albert, and I talked about wanting to have a charter revision, or possibly it. So I figured now might be a good time to just talk about what would be involved in it. I don't think it would be a few months until after the budget before we could start moving forward with this. But it's interesting. This covers the 10 steps that we would have. You know, basically we would appoint it. There would be public hearings, submission. Then once it was approved and or the Charter Revision Committee came forward, they would give it to us, and then we would eventually have to have the public hearing as well. The things that to point out here is we would have it's no longer than 16 months. So, but once you charge the Charter Revision Committee, if we do have one, with the charge of actually, you know, reviewing it, they have at most 16 months to come back to us, and then the Board of Selectmen has the ability to endorse or recommend changes. But then that committee decides to either incorporate them or say, no, we're not going to do that. And if there is no recommendations, the commission's report becomes final, and the appointing committee, which would be us, authority would be us, and then we would have to either say yes or no to it at that point in time. And then it would either have to be voted on at a special election or a regular election. And I think we'd have to look at probably a regular election, because you have to have at least 15% of the qualified electors voting in order to approve it. So if we did it at, say, a budget review or a budget referendum, and we only had 10 or 12%, we would be we would be in a tough situation. So if we decide to go with this, I think what we would look at doing is probably the next general election in 2023, in November, having it on there. Now, I think the discussion we don't really need tonight is who to put on it, because we're still several months away, or how to do that. But to get an indication how we feel about moving forward with this as we go ahead is, I've indicated I'm in favor of it, but I'd love to get the input from the rest of the board in moving forward, so we can have an idea where we're going.
I think Bill served on a previous Charter Revision Commission.
Yeah, so I'm just looking through this before, I mean, yes, I'm in favor of it.
Okay.
But what I don't see in this is where did the actual areas of the charter revision come from? In other words, last time we did charter revision, I think the previous election, there was a list of things. Do you think we should consider term limits? Do you think we should consider combined zoning wording? Whatever it was. There was questions at one point, I filled out some yellow forms that had the questions on it, and then they were all tallied. And then when the Charter Revision Commission was kicked off, it was like, okay, here's the things that the town wants you to consider.
Yeah,
That
okay.
came from a survey that we developed, and then we made the survey available at the local election. So there were people sitting outside,
Right.
and you could either stay and fill out the form there, and we had some sample things, and then said other. And so that was how we had. I think I had student volunteers.
So within these steps here, where is that?
All right, so we did, first of all, the survey to see if there, because remember, it can't be just the taxpayers, it has to be the voters.
The voters, yeah, taxpayers
So that
don't,
would be,
yeah.
so I had students at each of the polling places, and we, as a subcommittee of the board, before we ever put anything specific, there was a survey for the public, assuming that those people who went to vote would be the ones that would also have some knowledge and be interested in the charter revision and what they might like to see changed. Now, I've served on 3 and chaired 1. So this isn't an easy task. The procedure is very specific, and there's cost involved, because every subcommittee has to have a secretary, has to have minutes taken, minutes have to be filed. We have to have continued legal advice. We're already paying for an attorney anyway, but still this is an extra load. And then very specific timelines that have to be met. So I think that I agree with Kevin bringing it forward, but it's not something that we should undertake lightly.
Mhm.
You need the full 18 months.
16.
I mean 16.
16.
And then along the way, there are procedural points that you have to follow. So I think the last Charter Revision Committee, I think we met every other week.
We had subcommittees, and each
Yep.
subcommittee met separately.
Yep.
So we had the land use subcommittee, and there was a tournament
Mhm.
subcommittee, and each group met
Yes.
directly, and then we got together on occasion. I
Right.
don't know what the occasions
Yeah.
were, but.
Yeah, I've researched in the town clerk's office, the last, not the one you were on, because there's one subsequent to yours, Bill, but the last one was convened in April of 2008, reported back out in March of 2009. And it lists what they, and that, which is available, that listed what they looked at, and as far as, one of the things was town manager or a facilities director. Term limits, a 4-year term for the Board of Selectmen or
And the first
and the first selectman. Other things too. The town clerk has brought up issues to me that they would like to see addressed, as well as registrars and so forth like that. And that's just it. That's where we could provide topics in which that we'd like to see done. But then that's why you would have the public hearing, because it says right here, the commission must hold 2 public meetings, one prior to beginning substantive work, which would get that input from the community and what would they like to see. And it's like it says here, it consists of 5 to 15 electors and registered voters, not people who are just simply taxpayers. They have to be voters. And one of the things that the town attorney said is, you want to be inclusiveness, but you want people who understand how town government works, because they'll have a better feeling of to a large extent, how things work. So you want to try and get as much of a cross-representation. It's very specific, too, on, making sure it's as bipartisan as possible. And but we could work all that out. But as I was talking with the town attorney, he said if the decision is made that, yes, we're looking to go forward with this, we don't have to say tonight, yep, let's do it. But if there's an interest, then we know how to start preparing for it. Because as Roseanne said, it's a very onerous task. So it involves a lot of time and effort by a lot of people.
And there's considerable oversight.
But yeah.
To make it
So to answer your question, as far as your question, I think was who here would be interested in, or thinks it's a worthwhile effort. I think the first thing we should do is put together a straw man saying basically, okay, here's the timeline, here's the budget, here's what we think it's gonna cost, and here's,
Okay.
schedule-wise laying it all out.
Well,
And if we look at it, if we say, you know what, this is $30,000, that's one answer, if it's, $7,000, might be a different answer.
I don't think it's going to be $7,000 to be realistic, but
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's gonna be somewhere between some extreme number and some small
Yeah.
number, and based on the research in 2008, I think was the last one.
Yep.
We should be able to kind of guesstimate how many hours it is. You
Yep.
already know how many months it is.
yeah, I've reviewed several of the documents and so forth like that. So if the feeling is you want to pursue it, not do it,
Right.
I mean, that just gives me some background work to go out and start building that tree that you're talking about now.
Yeah,
Start putting together some information.
My opinion is it's worthwhile going forward.
Okay.
with the step of laying out a plan. That's my opinion. It's worthwhile laying out a plan and including timeline
Good.
and budget and things like that.
Okay.
And then if we see it doesn't make any sense, that's, but.
We need to get input from the public. Do we do that prior to the 16-month time kicking off? Or is that part of the 16?
Well, you have to do it prior to, right as no more than 16 months. I don't know if there's a minimum time, but I would think, as Roseanne said, the last one took 11 months. So I don't think you'd be looking at anything less than that.
But there was a lot of work that went on before.
Oh,
we
yeah.
got to
Well,
that.
that's
Yeah,
what I'm asking.
but that's just it. I think-
Before that 16-month
And-
time
and I think
starts clicking, is there?
well, I was thinking, Roseanne was making a good point. I was thinking when we have our budget referendum this May, and this is a tough thing because we don't get much of a turnout, it gets difficult, but that'd be a good time, or we could probably do it in the November election because you get a much better representation at that. We could get some information from people. We could be all set, ready to go by then with, a little bit more specificity without having said, yep, we're doing it, until we hear from the public.
I think it would be a good idea to do both, because you'll get a different crowd at the budget meeting, the annual budget meeting, than you.
Well, the
when you-
referendum, because the meeting
Yeah.
itself is,
Yeah.
no one goes to that anymore.
Well, they might if they knew they were going to have something to vote on, or they asked their opinion about something. I'm serious.
So I think if we're collecting data, to try to collect data in any different forms that we can, to get people's opinion on what they think. And then to Kevin's point, the calendar starts on election day when the official survey is handed out to
Yeah.
everybody. The teams are already, we've already got a list of volunteers, and then based on the questions that we want to look into, we can divide people up into the teams. And it seems like that's what we want to do, is we want to have a schedule ahead of time, we want to harvest all the ideas. Election day, we finalize the ideas, and then, by December 1st, we kick it off, 11-month cycle, and the following election day, we're ready to vote.
Yeah, and I think Roseanne made a good point. A lot of prep work can be done ahead of time too, talking about getting ready.
It's very specific about the makeup.
Yeah, so
Oh, no, yeah, it can only be, as it says right in here, only a third of the people can be currently on an elected board or commission. You can only have a bare majority, so it couldn't be a bare majority would not, if I think the last one may have been 11 people. I'm not positive on that, but close to that. But if you say it's had 9, you couldn't be 6-3. It would have to be 5-4. And here again,
So if we decided this is what we want, we'd have the next 10 months to do the planning phase.
okay.
And then, like I said, kick it off on election day and have the actual final vote the following election day.
Okay. All right, I can start doing some, and this is good because I probably won't start this until our budget cycle's done. But I wanted to have a discussion now because when I reviewed this with town attorney, as you can see, and Roseanne and Bill, you both know this, having been involved in past, it's a long, involved process. It requires a lot of dedication, so want to make sure that's understood.
The makeup of the committee is critical.
It's critical.
Because you don't want people who have already made up their minds that this is what they want. You want people who are open to hearing everybody's views.
Yeah, you gotta find those 3 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm already being contacted by people.
Some of it, yeah, I have to. So, I mean, and that was right in November, right because it had been a topic brought up during the campaign, so, anyway. Any other questions on that? Dan, you're good with that?
Yeah, it's, you know, it can be a daunting task, but I think it's one that it's time that we, I like Bill's idea that we you know, we get an idea of, lay out the steps, maybe do a timeline based on the statute, and an estimate of the cost, and then we can see if we want to continue to move forward with it. But we need that information, I think. to
Okay,
make-
I'll try and get something for a report out, let's say, end of March or something like that, just because that gives us time to go through the budget, and I'll be tied up with budget hearings with Board of Finance too, but,
Yeah.
and like I said, I've been looking at past ones and some of the other state statutes that apply to it as well, so, good. Okay, COVID, the Omicron variant. Just bring up that, as you have seen, we're roughly about 9% lower than we were about a week ago as far as the daily positivity testing. And as I was talking to Ledgelight today, the big important thing is over the last several days, the hospitalization of people is dropping, which is a better number. So we're seeing some improvement there. Still have a few people out with the town, but outside of but no one out, fortunately, doesn't appear to be serious. We had to cancel our drive-through over the weekend because of the frigid temperatures, because 20 to 25 below zero with the wind chill Saturday. Sunday wasn't any better, and then the storm Monday. So we weren't able to do that. We're hoping to reschedule, possibly for this weekend, but I have to wait to hear from the emergency management director and assistant emergency management director. They were a little bit tied up the last couple of days, moving dispatch from one location to another, and I'll cover that.
Going?
I'll cover that shortly. But very good.
Good.
So that's good. We've also been given some additional guidance with the test kits we have by the State Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. We're supposed to try and find out who is most in need and try and get them to those. So we have made arrangements to get more kits to AHEPA, Twin Havens, places where we know there might be some people in need. We've also been directed to make sure they're available to the disabled, which we're trying to do. And one of them, too, is unlicensed daycares, which is difficult because we don't know where they are. We don't have to now because they've been provided by the state, but we were helping out the bigger ones in town prior to last week, but now they've got their own supply. So we're working on that. On a good note, now you can...
This is going also to the Commission on Aging?
Oh yeah, no, Kathy Wilson has been taking very good care of helping get it to the people that she knows and can identify need. We've been in contact with her on a regular daily basis. And on a good note, now I know several of the pharmacies in town now have kits you can purchase, and there's a way now through your insurance you might be able to get them. And the federal government will mail 4 kits as well now, so there are other resources, but we are still going to try and hand out whatever we have to make sure they're out there.
And our local groups are having a real problem. Our local home health aid groups are having a tremendous problem. I went to Rydebrook and I asked if they were full at capacity, and they said no, they had plenty of space, they can't get workers.
Yeah.
Beechwood, I dropped by there because my husband been there before. They said the same thing. They've got space, but they can't get the workers.
Can't get workers.
And I have the same problem with my own home health care for my husband, in that tonight, I was racing in here, new person, first time, because the previous worker, she's been exposed to COVID. They can't keep the positions filled. In the last 2 weeks, I've had a home health aide one time, because they either they're ill or they've been exposed, and they just can't get the help. So I think our own Commission on Aging is very important, because for those people who particularly are homebound, oftentimes the Meals on Wheels delivery, which is all by volunteers, who they're also having trouble with because the volunteers are being exposed. Oftentimes for those people, the only contact is
the Meals on Wheels driver, deliverer. And if nobody comes to the door, they won't leave the food. So.
Well, if no one came to the door, then they would contact Kathy to look
Right,
further into it.
but what I'm
though.
saying is that, for these people, this is very important, and again, it's a big problem getting the workers, not so much the space and the availability. And I don't know that there's anything that as a board we could help in any way. Certainly, we're very fortunate we've got Ledge Light.
But providing the workers is something beyond everybody's means right now. Like I said, I think it's going to get better, but that's why one of the things we made kits available to people at a HEPA and people who are most in need, because someone who comes and provides the care for them could expose them. So we're making sure, and Kathy Wilson's been very good at making sure people, just because you have it, don't use it. If you think you might have been exposed, use it. If you start feeling some symptoms, use it. So. I think our department heads have done a really good job in making sure that if they're available to people in town hall, if they've been exposed, first responders, and that I think we've done a really good job in making sure those that are most in need that we can identify have been cared for. Because a fellow came in today and he said, all I need is a couple of masks. He said, because I've got COPD and he's got some other significant injury ailments and that. Well, to me that qualified. So. We provided that gentleman with a test kit. He didn't even ask for one, but based on what he told me, we made sure he got one. So, but I think we're making a lot more headway than we were a week ago with this. The sad thing is at most we were given 2,000 test kits for 20,000 people, and that's hard to figure out how to disperse those. So, anyway, any other questions about? Outside of, let's hope it goes away very soon. And I will say the vast majority of people that come in have been, Sandy, we've dealt with them. They are so appreciative of anything that we can give them to help them through the masks and understanding about the COVID test kit. But people have been very, very appreciative. Bill. We will let you know when we do. I'll send an email out to everybody if we do it. It'll be quick because we do what you're just going to hand and go. So, but I'll reach out to everybody here. So, okay, moving on to old business and update from Ad Hoc, our ARP Ad Hoc.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm sorry. We have appointments to board
Yes,
and
we do.
commission.
And I think the folder is floating around,
Yeah.
so that would be great.
Oh, sorry.
Start these.
Thank you. We have the motions.
Yeah, we've got the motions here, so. Okay. So, we'll begin here. These are appointments. Move to appoint Susan Gonzalez, 44 Heritage Road, East Lyme, as a member of the Niantic River Watershed for the town of East Lyme, with a term to expire on January 5th, 2026.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Okay, move to appoint Tracy Collins of Waller, Smith & Palmer, 52 Eugene O'Neill Drive, New London, as town attorney, with a term to expire January 5th, 2026.
Second? Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Next one.
Move to appoint Mark Salerno, 8 Bob White Lane, East Lyme, as Deputy Treasurer for the town of East Lyme, with a term to expire on December 1st, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I think you can do the next two because it's for the same board.
Okay. Move to appoint Paul Daigle of 5 Riverhead Lane, East Lyme, as a member of the Water Assessment Board of Appeals for the town of East Lyme, with a term to expire on January 5th, 2026.
And then Mark Salerno before that.
Before that, there was one that we skipped.
I see, yeah. And move to appoint Mark Salerno, 8 Bob White Lane, East Lyme, as a member of the Water Assessment Board of Appeals for the town of East Lyme, with the term to expire January 5th, 2026.
Second? Okay, I talked them into doing this because this board has not met since 2006. but we are required to have it. So they only agreed, with all their past service, they said they feel comfortable that they can do this. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Is that a state requirement to have the board?
Yeah, it is, because if we have an area where we eventually are required to extend the water service into an area and so forth like that, that's when it could possibly happen. The last time we did it, I think, was, I know the orchards, but there was never anything there. Because now they can even come to the Water Commission and make an appeal too. But I tried to talk to the town attorney into this, and he said, no, we have to have it, so.
You can't combine it?
No, we cannot.
Okay.
That was my thought, combined with water and sewer. He said no, because people who aren't happy there have to have some place to go. Okay.
All right. Move to appoint Alfred Hobby, 33 Upper Patagoncet Road, East Lyme, as a member of the Historic Properties Commission for the town of East Lyme, with a term to expire on January 5th, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. And I think we can do the next two because they're both Brookside Farm.
Okay, move to appoint Maggie Prokoff, 52 Lovers Lane, East Lyme, as a member of the Brookside Farm Museum Commission for the town of East Lyme, with a term to expire January 5th, 2026. And move to appoint Gary Lukowski, 12 Methodist Street, Niantic, as a member of the Brookside Farm Museum Commission for the town of East Lyme, with a term to expire January 5th, 2026.
Is there a second? Seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carries unanimously. And the last one?
Okay, move to appoint Donna Masung, 68 Dean Road, East Lyme, as an alternate member on the Historic Properties Commission for the town of East Lyme, with a term to expire on January 8th, 2024.
Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ann. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? It carries unanimously. Moving on to old business, update from Arp Ad Hoc Committee. And I'll just say, as I mentioned before, real quick, I have asked department heads to give me a list, and I don't know if I sent you guys the email, but for, what they have, the reason for it, and a list of priority if they have more than one. So that they are going to give me by February 2nd. So yours, Ann.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, we're looking forward to meeting tomorrow, Ann Cocello and myself, with the rest of the members of the ad hoc committee. And we'll be meeting 5:30 to 6:30 right here in this room, organizational meeting. But we're pretty well organized so far with, email addresses, giving out basic information, and reports. And Anna Johnson was kind enough to update the report that we all received when we were on Board of Finance, which indicates, how much money we've gotten and how much we've spent, et cetera, and an expenditure analysis as well. And then I also provided a little timeline of town meetings in the last few months, and what items we have specifically approved, for what organizations. And the biggest development since last week talked about the ad hoc committee has been the finalization of the Treasury's rules. The final rule has come down, and that's been disseminated. I went to a little seminar on that as well, and now there are many summaries of this final rule floating around. Treasury itself has done a summary. CCM just did a summary, even shorter. So there are these additional updated resources. The reading list for the ad hoc committee, obviously, focused on this most recent development. So we're looking forward to it, and we're going to be figuring out how best to receive information. But I'm just pleased that we will be able to have individuals in the community that can act as conduits for this information, whether it's the business community, the 501(c) community, or other individuals. So I think it's with 4 officials, 2 from Board of Finance, 2 from our board, and these other 4 individuals. I think it will help tremendously, because it's a bit of work, to say the least, so it'll help this board in making its decisions. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Okay,
Thanks.
Ann, any comments?
No, I was just gonna say that, as I stated previously, tomorrow everyone's supposed to bring their calendar so we can set up the meetings going forward, and that way we'll be able to set up the budget meetings and
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
But I think we have a good group, and I think we're hopefully gonna work pretty quickly.
Excellent, too. Because, the timeline that Ann had put out in the last one, too, worked out well, because I know some of the department heads will be putting projects in that, if gets approved, will come out of the capital improvement plan or something like that, so it might save putting them in there and so forth like that. In fact, Mr. Burgoa had a great idea, and when I mentioned it to I won't tell what it was, but it was for an expensive item, and I mentioned it to the town attorneys, and I didn't even get it out of my mouth. They said, "Oh, no, absolutely not." I said, "Oh, okay, it's good to know right now." It's good to know right now, so that we know where to put that. So, but thank you for the 2 people volunteering, and all those who, 2 people from here donating their time, and people from finance and the community. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Ex officio parts. Roseanne, we'll start with you.
Okay. First of all, question, the Board of Selectmen report for the annual town report, has that been completed?
No.
Okay.
You mean for the go in the budget?
No, for the annual town report.
No.
Okay, then we need to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
We will, okay.
Each department is supposed to turn in a short report to go into the annual town report.
Okay.
So I didn't mean to spring it on anybody.
No, I don't remember seeing one over the last several years.
That's because you weren't shown it.
Okay. Okay.
So perhaps that will change.
I assure you that's going to change, Roseanne. I don't know if it'll be at the next meeting, but it will be coming out shortly.
Okay,
And thank you.
you're welcome. Now you had to make an appointment to see it. So I don't know, I asked Natural Resources, and they said that they had not been asked to submit either, so I guess,
Okay, if that hasn't happened, we will address that.
okay, so
Thank you.
so they've written their report.
Okay.
So perhaps, let me check with town clerk.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this a report that goes in the budget book?
No, there's a separate book, it's the annual town report. And it used to be printed in a little booklet, and copies were made available, and I believe it's a state requirement.
Okay,
Is it part of the audit? at
No,
all, or
it's not part of the
just-
audit. Roseanne, I don't remember seeing one in the last several years.
I believe it's a state requirement.
Okay, I will look into that for sure. If it is, that requirement will be fulfilled.
We're shining a light in every nook and cranny in this.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I guess apparently, well, they stopped making copies available for people, and I don't think that
don't recall it either.
people asked.
Okay.
Maybe the state's changed the requirement.
Okay, we'll find out.
So, the zoning commission met, and no particular issues there. They'll meet tomorrow night. Natural Resources, they are interested in trying to meet with the Aquifer Protection Agency, which has not met for a considerable amount of time, and to see if they can pool ideas, more specifically about protection of wetlands and waterways. And that's it.
Okay. Bill,
No, the planning hasn't met yet, and building is tomorrow night.
tomorrow night. Okay. Ann?
Let's see, the East Line, Harbor Management meeting was canceled, Historical Properties Commission hasn't met yet. And in the wetlands, I met with last night, nothing major was really discussed, however, there are 3 alternate positions that need to be filled, so if anybody knows anybody who'd be interested in the wetlands, if you could contact contact me, and I can contact Gary Gaishel and
Get them,
Mr. Serio.
yeah, we'll definitely, yeah.
Yeah, get the names out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, because I know Greg McIntyre was an alternate, but now he's up on the full board, so.
Yeah, he's on the board,
so-
so now, they said they have 3 alternates, that they,
Yeah.
positions they need.
Okay,
to
we'll
fill.
take care of that, or attempt to.
Yeah.
Mr. Cunningham?
Well, I had the opportunity for the first time to be ex officio for the East Lyme Parks and Rec Commission, and it was an interesting meeting. Dave Putnam, he provided a very detailed report. Some of the key features, there will be a Celebrate East Lyme. It'll be back this summer, so they were excited to announce that. They did review some of the fees for the tent and the pavilion and the Peretz Park, or rather the Seebeck Pavilion, and those fees going up a little bit. There's a lot of pressure and demand for those spots, and so they've increased the fees. Let's see. And one of the things that they were discussing, it seemed to come up in a couple of different areas, was more and more demand on the public public bathrooms, and that's going to become an issue. I think that it's going to have to be dealt with at some point in the future. I guess the hole in the wall, with people coming in to access the boardwalk, it's pretty busy over there. So something we may need to think about as the town becomes more and more attractive and people are out and about. We need to think perhaps about providing more access. But that was one of their concerns.
Dan,
That was it.
just so you'll know too, Dave, we reviewed his budget today, and that was a big topic in that, and Bridebrook Park, so we were talking about.
Good.
That might be a good ARP use of
Yeah.
funding. So, but yes, thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing was they have plans to lobby the ARP committee and to try to get some things accomplished that that are on their watch. So that's my report.
I don't have a report this meeting, between meetings, and Bill will be going to the Town Building Committee meeting this Thursday. We share that responsibility, and I'll be at the Ad Hoc Committee meeting.
Yeah.
So, and just one point about the bathrooms. Something I hear, I just had this from Main Street all the time, Main Street business owners, is that they are really asked so often, folks come in to use bathrooms. So, yeah, it's definitely an issue. It seems to be a growing issue. So.
If I may comment on that too, and from some of the restaurant owners and the business owners that I've spoken with, it's you don't want to offend a potential customer, but at the same time, they're not in the business of providing public bathrooms. So it's become a touchy issue, and something I think we as a board in the town, we need to look at it and try to address it in some way.
And a good point too, Dan, because the bathroom, the bathrooms down at Cheney Park are removed in the winter. Considering what happened this past weekend, I'm glad they were removed.
Right.
But the other ones at McCook's and Hole in the Wall are not winterized, so those are locked up in the winter because you can't have water in the pipes over this past weekend. So forth. So anyway. Okay, for our first Selectmen report, dispatch, Roseanne brought it up, moved today. They are up and running, and things are working well. Star Computers is still there, making sure everything goes well. It was posted, but we have lost channel 22 for probably about another day, and that's just because of the servers and stuff like that. It's an inconvenience, but the police dispatch, fire dispatch is working well. Police will start moving into the building mid to late next week, and fully operational with the lockup facilities by mid-February, mid to late February, and is the plan, and I don't see anything stopping that now. There was a really good piece on Channel 3 last night, and a shorter one tonight on, I think, WTNH about the facility, and it was very positive. So, and they're excited to be getting in there. Just so you know, over the heavy rains we had over the Saturday, and Sunday into Monday, there was no water problems at the building. So the roof is just about completed being replaced. So it's looking really, really good. Now that that's done, there's 16, the question is when can I'm scheduling a meeting with Dominion to talk about that building. We'll talk about that in executive session at our next meeting, once I've talked to them. And I said to Chief, when will we be out of there? He said, to be honest with you, there's 16 years of accumulation in there, so that's going to take a while to clean out, because most of that, is not stuff that will be moved to the other building. So that's, what's left there that we'll have to figure out a disposal way for that. So that's going to be taken care of. What I'd like to think about doing too, if you're interested, prior to the next Board of Selectmen meeting on February 2nd, maybe at 5:30, schedule a special meeting and an executive session for this board to tour the, to get a tour by the chief of the police building. Here again,
Yeah.
it does qualify as an executive session because we're talking safety and security. Obviously, we'll get to see a lot more of the facilities in that, so that would obviously be something that, and at some point in time, we do plan on having a public open house, but this would be more involved. So if everyone's interested, I'll take care of doing that and line the
That'd be
chief
great.
up for that.
That'd be good.
Amtrak fence. We've seen the people out surveying it over the last couple of weeks. Bill Scher reached out to the contact there, and they're going to replace that from basically the train bridge to hole in the wall, except for the area that we have by the park, which we've already done, between late February to mid-April. It's a little bit different fence. But right now they have the chain link fence. What they'll put up will be a little bit, what they're planning is a little more of an obstruction. If you're looking on an angle, it's the pole that goes up and kind of hooks over. You've seen, it's been in the paper in Stonington to show what they did down there. A few of the people that live in the area aren't too thrilled with that, so we're going to reach out and try and talk to Amtrak to see if anything can be changed on that. But so that is finally getting done after a couple of years.
Can you see through the barrier itself?
If you're sitting there, if the fencing is there and you're looking through it, and it's sort of what's on the other side of the Amtrak end of the boardwalk, those the poles up there. If you're looking straight ahead, but if you're looking at an angle, it would be an obstruction. For instance, if you're at Skipper's looking towards to see the inlet by McCook's and how nice it is there, that would be an obstruction. So, those are some things we have some concerns about, and we'll see what we can do. The Historical Society is getting ready. They'll be moving into the old Firehouse Dispatch Center. They started the paperwork for the zoning change for the use of the building with the zoning officer in the zoning office, and town attorney is working on a lease document. When we did the budget review with the library, Dave Jacobs, who's head of the Library Association board, was there as well, because they have some really interest in having it is the first floor open to the public, and like a resource for the town, especially the schools there. But here again, that building has to be cleaned out too, so when, we don't know, but we're working on the documentation for that. As I mentioned, budget reviews with department heads have started. I've gone through several of them. Some of them I don't meet with, but actually I'm meeting with all of them this year, but there's no, we don't always bring all of them to before the board here, like town clerk and that. Those are just basically the same thing every year after year. But we have 4 union contracts expiring. I met with the labor attorney today. 2 of the unions have indicated a willingness to do a 1-year extension. So that way they don't keep coming up all together every year, every 4 years together, or every 3 years together. And those are usually a lot easier to do, just a quick wage settlement, maybe 1 or 2 other things for cleaning up. So there are a couple doing that, so we're moving forward with that. I sent those thank you to Lillian's and spoke with the owner at the farmers market this past weekend. They handed out well over 500 meals, so they're very appreciative of that. Flooding from the storm, as you, yes?
I just said thank you.
Oh, okay. But thank you for mentioning it too, Roseanne. We saw the flooding effects in Crescent Beach, Oak Grove Beach area, and Saunders Point. As soon as the water started to recede, it was remediated in a very competent, expeditious manner by our town crew. You have to give them credit. They really stepped up. I heard from so many people how quickly they worked, how, competent it was. It was done really well. So they did a really great job. And you saw about the evacuation down there, where the group of ladies were trapped in a house there, and the police got down there, got the bucket truck, loaded her out, boom, got them to safety. So it worked out well. And I'm going to reach out to the state to try and arrange a meeting to find out about when Starlight and Mobile Station are going to be demolished, because we've seen that that's all boarded up. The Mobile Station, he's got almost nothing left inside because he's going to be vacating soon. So I'm going to try and see if I can get a timeline as to when we're going to have some ability or have some knowledge of when that's going to be torn down.
It's a good idea because it's really an eyesore.
Yes, it is.
And it's our gateway, one of our gateways.
I know.
to town.
I know. So, and that's all I have. Any other questions for me?
No, but I have a couple of things.
Okay.
One of the things that I have brought up frequently is the potential of hiring at least part-time a grant writer. I thought that at one point I thought maybe we could get a grant writer and share 50-50 with the Board of Ed, but I think that perhaps the focus would be, it'd be too much of a division between the two. So the library project, that's being done with grant money in part.
It's quite a bit. They've got about, so far, $17,000 in grants for that.
Right.
Uh,
One of our graduates of the high school, Rosemary Ostfeld, she just got a major grant for helping with farming and getting, farm to food and getting farm outlets. She got a considerable grant. So my point is, there's grant money out there, but we aren't going for it because we don't have anybody to pursue it unless something happens to come across that specifically interests you. And I think that there's money out there, which isn't necessarily rescue fund money, but I think that there's grant money out there. And I think that if we had a writer, that we could access some of that money and perhaps make it, a half-time position and set a goal for income. And if it doesn't work out, well then, that's it. We tried it. So I would like to have that as a consideration when we have our budget hearings, our budget presentation. I don't know what that would come under, but I'd like to ask the rest of the board to be thinking about that. And I think the historic properties, they got a small grant, but it really takes somebody who's got time to focus on it and someone who hopefully would have had some previous experience. The other thing that I wanted to mention when you were talking about the roof at the Public Safety Building, the roof at the substation for the fire department,
yes.
we used to call it substation. I think now it's Station 2, or is it Station 3?
Station 2.
That roof needs some work, and I wonder if that money, improvement to infrastructure, if rescue funds could be available for that.
I've already talked with Chief Burrow, and I have already talked about that.
And is that something that would be?
We haven't gotten a decision yet from town attorney.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Communications, we don't have anything. Selectmen's response, there's no public comment. Sandy, unless you want to send anything? Okay, the next thing we'll be doing is moving into executive session. So, Ann, if you'd like to.
Yes. Move to enter into executive session at
8:05, according to my watch.
8:05 p.m. for the purpose of discussing real estate matters, the Hathaway property, to include the members of the
Just the members of the Board of Selectmen.
the Board of Selectmen.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're in executive.
Resume.
Okay, and the camera.
Okay, and the camera, hang on, we will be back here. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay,
Back on the record.
okay, move to return from executive session at 8:37 PM with no formal votes taken.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Dan Cunningham.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay,
Okay.
good.
And move to adjourn the regular meeting of January 19th, 2022 at 8:37 PM.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Okay.